Yeah, something like
about
that.
that at the moment.
That is weird.
About that at the moment.
Welcome to Cloud Realities, a conversation show exploring the practical and exciting alternate realities that can be unleashed through cloud-driven transformation. I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Sjoukje Rob.
And I'm Rob Kernahan.
And this week we're going to be talking about data products in the retail sector. How do you evolve to data as a product approach, and what benefits can it bring? Joining us this week to talk about their journey and what leading through this journey is like and some of the challenges is Wes In Der Rieden, Director of Data and Information at Burberry. Wes, great to see you. Thanks for joining us this week. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Burberry?
I'm Wes In Der Rieden. I'm the Director of Data and Information at Burberry, and that really entails the foundational element usually of data serving the entire enterprise.
Let's kick off with the ambition that you guys have around becoming a data-driven organization. And that's a phrase that gets bandied around like quite a lot. So let's start with maybe your definition and the definition that you guys are talking about. What do you mean by data-driven initially?
Well, it has multiple definitions. And it's not you. There's a you Wessel and there's a you Burberry, i.e. there's a number of people that look at data-driven through different lenses. So the lens I apply is enablement. So as a company and as an industry, what's happening is more and more touch points with customer, supplier, vendor, and customer is individual, wholesale, and more in a digitized space, more and more need to be innovative, to have multiple touch points, and therefore more and more specialist application. So we are still quite ERP centric, but we have many more applications in our landscape than we ever had, and therefore, if we have multiple applications that all engage with the same partner, vendor, supplier, customer, employee, how do we make sure that there's consistency? So that the data enablement and the data-driven organization I often refer to is consistency of data across all applications and therefore allow us to continuously grow and have those multiple touch points, but be consistent. That when a customer engages with Burberry, that whatever platform or application they deal with, it's the same product content, it's the same price, it's the same inventory. So consistency. So therefore, allow the organization to be very customer, vendors, etc. facing, but having that backbone of consistency. That's one of the lenses I apply. There is a predictive analytics lens on that as well, which we can cover separately.
Yeah, I was actually going to come on to the rationale for going through the process, because obviously aligning data, as we know, and it's a long held truth that it's way easier to say than do. So what I can see in your description there is tremendous customer experience advantage. What are the other uses that you think you're going to drive through the business as a result of going through the journey?
Through the business is basically speed and agility. How are we going to evolve constantly with the marketplace, with new business models, evolved business models? So effectively helping that evolution. So I would say in the current day and age, a lot of companies are struggling with their heavy backbone of systems, of ERP, and everything is hard. Almost every change is hard, because with ERP, everything is constantly the great thing. Everything is integrated, but therefore everything is about everything.
Yeah.
And therefore change is hard.
An organization I worked with on that point had a large ERP system, and they had 3 global instances, which they wrestled for years into one single global instance. And then it became so interdependent that they could barely make changes to the thing. So it actually slowed the business down.
And therefore the outcome, so good IT obviously is something I care about, but that's not what we're selling. What we're trying to sell is speed and agility and the enablement of the business to transform itself constantly with new initiatives. And say obviously sustainability is and the capability of bigger companies to be able to move with the time with constantly changing requirements, both legal requirements as well as customer expectations. Yeah, and that's changing so fast at the moment. How do we do that? And therefore, and how do we do that across multiple platforms? Yeah, and often with new requirements coming out that somehow we can't just plonk that in to existing applications. How do you do that? So speed and agility is the outcome I always look for, not great architecture. Great architecture enables speed and agility, but it's in that sequence.
And from an architectural point of view at the moment, with obviously cloud coming along and the evolution of application architecture, and now presumably not having the data so coupled to applications, it gives us a new opportunity.
Yes, and that's so I talk about data centricity a lot, and almost, and there's a marketing element to it. Yeah, so plug and play of new applications, because plug into that data centricity, and data is master data and transaction data in a common Burberry standard. Therefore, people don't have to ask the question. People being new applications, solution architects, they don't need to know everything about everything. Just buy the data product. Yeah, consume the data product, and therefore enable people to not solve every problem, just solve their problem. And consistency is therefore given without them even asking for it.
It's a very powerful pattern, isn't it? When you get data into a state where you can just get on top of the data and not have to worry about the systems that are producing it beneath. So you're unencumbered by that complexity and legacy, but you're able to be curious, you're able to try new things, you're able to build things based just on the data set. And then suddenly you get this freedom in the organization. I think many businesses are waking up to the power of this style of integration. Integrate through data and don't worry so much about the producer systems beneath it, but just, they have to be managed. But actually, I can sit on top of a very pure and consistent model that, enables freedom.
Yes, and because of the rapid changes, we don't have the luxury, but I think very few of other companies do, of a single system of entry or record of a master data or transaction data object. So therefore, there's a new problem, and that also is combined with the continuous need to decommission older systems. So we're constantly changing. How do you do that? How do you both enable change and update your system landscape and upgrade your system landscape? And that dilemma, i.e. sometimes you're like, we can only do one, but really that's not realistic. We need to do both. We can't stand still, but we can't run aged architecture either. So we need to be able to do both. So therefore, a decoupling and an abstraction layer and data centricity is something we're pursuing to try to do both. That doesn't make it easy. Yeah, obviously this is a chat. Once you sit with engineers, then it really gets hard. But we're making good progress.
And I think it's that everybody has the burden of the past, but they need to meet the challenge of the future. And this pattern I see rising a lot with there is a practical pathway using this approach, data-centric way to enable the future. It is one of the critical mechanisms of any organization that's going to thrive in the future.
Yes.
The thing is, though, the business who are consumers of this data and use it to build the business models and interaction and everything, I still see them waking up to the reality of how they need to think about data. And I was interested in your view about your culture, and has that shifted to understand that this is the future, this very powerful thing. And then you get onto the point you made about AI and predictive analytics. This can add real business value. Has that awareness arisen?
It's a growing awareness, but I'd like it to be for it to accelerate. Let me put it that way. So most companies are familiar with, say, process owners, order to cash, procure to pay. I'm going to go very basic here, but a business owner of single view of product, single view of price, it sounds a bit techie. Or do we really need to? But really, the enablement of that. And I was having a discussion earlier in the week about, say, pricing. Where is the industry, not necessarily Burberry specifically, going with? How do we sell our products? Is that always through stores and .com? Third-party.com, are we going to ever have sort of sales associates that sell on any social media platform? Yeah, that kind of, I'm just dreaming here.
Yeah, or the metaverse, the metaverse.
Exactly, and therefore, what do they need? Consistent view of product, price, and inventory. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going very basic, but how do we enable the future, and whether that is a business model that we're going into or something else? What we do know is that the rate of change is going to increase more and more and more. So how are we ready for that? And what's also clear is not all those solutions or touch points are going to be internal, i.e. owned by us. So how do we scale to that? How do we meet the challenge of the future? So I'm really obviously equally excited, as well as, oh my God, how we're going to do this? Yeah.
We did a podcast a few weeks ago around changing management styles and systems thinking going away and uncertainty and things like the Cynefin framework rising. It's almost, and the position was, you have to prepare your organization to be able to adapt to whatever you face in the future, but you may not know. COVID taught us we weren't prepared for that. And exactly becoming data centric and the things that you discuss are preparing you for what the future might hold. So it's future proofing your architecture and systems to allow the business to adapt and be flexible extremely quickly.
And therefore, that discovery or the journey for that, what you call business ownership of these data products, is much more of a cultural journey than anything else.
Very much so.
And the rate of change, I would say, in IT is sometimes higher than the rate of change within the business. And it's hard to meet these challenges, and sometimes difficult to explain.
It is very difficult, and I think many, if not all, organizations that are going through some aspect of digital transformation are going through the same challenges of the cultural journey. And I sort of align it to digital skills and being sort of a business leader who for years has effectively had an expertise in whatever their business domain would be, but then almost always have a secondary expertise in finance and how the business actually functions. And to me, digital becomes one of those, at least one of those secondary skills. It's so to the forefront of how organizations are evolving that it becomes critical, I think, for business leaders to have digital as one of their secondary skills.
Yeah, so what I try to do to sort of think outside the box is ask this question: what does Amazon sell? And then the answer turns out to be, well, it used to be books many moons ago, and now
everything,
anything. Yeah. And therefore, well, how is a company able to do that? And the answer is, it's the same model. It really doesn't matter. They have a data product for finished good, for price, for inventory, for fulfillment. Yeah, and therefore, it's almost like, what shall we do next? Because there's no tech inhibitor for them. And that's sort of the mindset I'm aligning to. Now, I'm not saying we're Amazon.
No,
that's the last thing I did. But as a mental aid to think, but that's a capability thing.
Yeah, as a model, the capability is A to B to C, and you have then a series of supporting data products underneath that, and therefore you can push anything through that model. I do want to return to the phrase that you use, the data product, and just in your mind, what is that, and how is that different to just managing data generally?
What is a data product? I'll start there. So that's I try to explain it like this: that single view of finished good, single view of bill of materials, single view of raw materials, single view of vendors, single view of inventory, single view of historical sales, which is also a very important, single view of demand, single view of supply. So those are the core, the basic data products that we're working on and have. And therefore, going back to that very complex landscape, we have many systems of entry for most of these data products. Therefore, either any new or subscribing system, we can either create a whole host of interfaces, and the subscriber needs to do all that modeling, every individual subscriber, or we create that data product, and that becomes therefore a physical product, a consolidation of the many systems of potentially many systems of entry. And that data product, to go to your next question, is available and trusted data. Yeah, so what is it? Available and trusted data for any subscriber to have access to, and it's got therefore many layers. It's usually a canonical and physical model, and then we have a team that looks at data quality.
I was going to say, would you align the term product? I think is very specific. So would you align like product management techniques to that product to sort of maintain the data and its consistency and accuracy?
Yes. So we call them data product managers, simply to not call them product managers, because product managers are usually associated with business capabilities. So a data product manager is that single view, but therefore also that data product manager looks at the run aspect as well as the future. Yeah. And run being, is it available? Is it trusted? Yeah. And how do we engage with the rest of the organization? Yeah. Because you, in a way, you're also a shop. Yeah, we're trying to be a shop. Come to our shop and buy our shiny data product, and you can trust it. Yeah, and there's after sales service. Yeah,
get a loyalty card out of it as well. You get a stamp every time you use a data product.
No, but for an organization having these data products, it's actually not a loyalty card. It's almost a reverse loyalty card. Once you've built it once, every new subscriber gets it for free. Yeah. Now, for free, obviously, data dictionaries are different for every subscriber, so there's still work, but the product is there, and therefore also from a cost base for us, it actually the return on investment once it's reused, once a data product is reused, the return on investment is enormous, and therefore we create speed, agility, and scalability.
Yeah.
And then from one of the things that organizations are having to wake up to is when you go to product-centric models, lines of funding needs to change. Traditional IT funding lines have been through programs and projects, and now we have to curate these things. They're a thing we need to sustain. They need to survive and thrive. What's your view on that shift? Because these are things that the whole organizations use, but no one funding vehicle may allow you to initiate and create one from the beginning. So we need to think differently.
So I recognize the challenge. The great thing that at strategic level and at IT leadership level, we've coined things like what are our strategic initiatives, and data and APIs are one of those. So therefore, using our principles, we can enforce projects enforce in a lighter sense of the word. Yeah, there's no one's carrying a stick here. We have to consume that data via a data product / API.
Right.
Therefore, the problem is usually the first project that requests it is the one paying. Yeah, so that's in a way unfortunate, but that's accepted as an unfortunate byproduct of our funding model. Yeah, so therefore we're going to do it like this. The first subscriber is the one paying for it. Now, the good thing is it's usually the same business areas that reuse those data product in multiple projects. Yeah, so there isn't that sense of envy. Yeah.
And then there must be a point when you hit critical mass where you talked about the facets of the core products earlier. Then you get there, and then it's almost like it's much easier, and that burden of initial one in has gone.
Yes, and I would say we're reaching that now, that a number of projects are going to our internal API portal and saying, "Oh, so it's already done. Oh, and it's already documented,
and it's assembled, and it's quick, and it's fast, and suddenly, you're at the place you always wanted to be." Yeah,
and therefore, it suddenly, and this is back to the funding question, very appealing, because hold on, what we used to do is you had the let me call it the data engineers as part of these projects, and every time you had to have a data engineer. And now we're trying to turn it around a little bit, like with the data centricity, the projects are just a customer. Yeah, but the customer reusing the products that are already there. Yeah, and therefore because a lot of landscapes are quite complex. So effectively, we're also reducing the need for golden resources. Yeah, those bottlenecks that many organizations have of that, those superstars that you have. Every organization I've worked for has always got, we better get Johnny involved or Sarah involved because he or she knows everything. Yeah, that we want to move away from that, and commoditized data products
very much
is
so
one of those ways, and really also it's a benefit to those key resources because they don't have to do the complex things for every project. We can start thinking about the future.
It removes the expert bottleneck from the organization. Those highly valuable people. I think Gene Kim calls that out in the Phoenix project, doesn't he? Which are like, you know, the people who you absolutely rely on and quite often keep everything moving along, but through no fault of their own, they end up inhibiting pace.
Absolutely, we've seen that over the years, and no fault of their own, but sometimes, and because those type of people, real subject matter experts, they care deeply, and therefore at times the stress levels, because the demand is so high for summer in peak times. Yeah, so it's even about, we're even talking about well-being here.
Yeah, absolutely right. But look, to bring the conversation to a bit of a close today, I want to just return to the little model that we talked about, which is like, if you establish steps 1, 2, 3, you have the correct data products underneath it, you can then push product through that. And very briefly, I just wanted to talk about the application architecture evolution you must be going through to achieve that sort of pattern. Presumably, you're looking at abstraction.
Yep.
And where are you on that journey, and what challenges are you getting to that point of, we now have composable processes with tech that supports that with underlying data products?
Well, it first of all it's hard, but we've created a factory model. So that's working really well. So we've ring-fenced a group of engineers that just look at this. Then the second challenge is the continuous change of the underlying systems. So one of the key things about the reference to canonicity is how do we, what's the governance, what are the naming conventions that we use, and therefore who owns these naming conventions. Then thirdly, another challenge is obviously continuous change, because again, sustainability is a good example. New fields will, I'm going quite basic, but new fields emerge all the time. So therefore, hub and spoke data centricity is great, but now versioning, how do we do this? Because and how do we do the governance? Because new fields doesn't mean that a subscriber is interested in that field. So how do we evolve our operating model to that data centricity? And that's really an area we're reaching right now. The other big one almost going back to the very start about analytics. So the data products, we want to also start augmenting the data products with predictive analytics fields that help the decision making in applications, not just insightful analytics, but also help the whole every consuming application use augmented data to further optimize whatever it does. So continuous evolution of those data models is the next challenge, evolution, i.e. growth as well.
And what advice would you give to an organization that is starting on this journey? It's like you have got a real grip on what's going on and the evolution in your organization is really clear and, really starting to push ahead with some of this stuff, though the journey is challenging. There's no doubt about that. So if I'm like at the beginning of that journey and I could leverage a couple of pearls of wisdom from you, what would they be?
Start with the recognition of data as a communal product. Because often I see many organizations and ourselves as well. We're in love with the new application. That's always where all the excitement is, and therefore to pause and say, right, how do we I'm even going to say commoditize that data and therefore appoint somebody that's actually not part of the project. That person and that group is part of every project. And therefore, almost pause and reflect and not go with every project. Say, what is that central capability we need? And therefore scale to that. And that goes back to Rob's question. How do you fund that as well? Because that's often a challenge, but that's what I would say. Recognize the need for those communal products, the communal needs, and scale to that, and also make sure that with our consulting partners that we ring fence the right resources, because these are usually very knowledge hungry areas, and therefore there's a lot of value in people being part of a team for an elongated period of time to really build up their mastery. But then secondly, document. Documentation is boring, but it's essential. A commoditized product is fully documented. So also taking the time to really document, and therefore having the time, taking the time, but having the time, which is often, it's not a funding issue, it's a capacity issue usually. But every time you don't spend the time on documenting and making it therefore reusable, repeatable, it becomes the problem for the next project because people are unaware of what's already been done. Documentation.
All right, Sjoukje, what have you been looking at this week?
So each week I will do some research on what's trending in tech, and this week I want to focus on how to establish a data-driven culture change. So to really become a successful data-driven organization, it's extremely important to establish a data-driven culture. And the benefits of that data-driven culture is to examine and organize the data in such a way that it serves the organization's customers and consumers. And actually, establishing a data-driven culture is more a matter of influencing than a matter of control. So therefore, leaders and CDOs need to show leadership in 3 areas of influence. First one, identify and communicate the business value of data across your organization. Also address the cultural change impacts of a data-driven approach and inspire your people to believe that this change is really necessary. And lastly, manage the ethical implications of data and analytics by, for instance, establishing a code of conduct that defines ethical guidelines, and also be clear about antitrust expectations. So Wes, a question for you. What do you think of these areas of influence? Are they important? And do you think this will really help organizations to change their culture towards a data-driven organization?
Yeah, I mean, I can't even try to disagree with any of them. So, one of the challenges we have, because again, I agree completely with it, is that there is still, I would say, an outdated notion that data is that thing that IT does. Yeah, and therefore, we have a number of people in our IT organization that understand data both technically, but actually also impact wise and benefit wise. Now, that to me is in the wrong place. Yeah, that what can we do with the data? Yeah, where does it serve as application solutions, analytics? And therefore that's very much a gradual cultural shift to share that and therefore start with the outcome. Yeah, because in the end, the business cares about outcome, and we, Burberry, we don't buy data, sell data, we use data. Yeah, and why do we use data? For an outcome. That's it. So there is sometimes quite a different language we need to speak, and that influencing aspect that you raised. How do we also as IT professionals not talk that IT language? Yes, but it is important because of API, or I love the word canonicity. However, when I use that in a meeting with business leaders, they look at who's the IT loony, who let the IT loony in. Yeah,
is that what the pirates used to have? Canonicity.
So yeah, that influencing us. What does it allow us to do? Yeah, I have to lead with the outcome, and therefore make it clear that that data, and obviously we've been talking about data products. How do you nurture? How do you cultivate? How do you curate? Yeah. And what is in it for you? Yeah, it is not just an IT thing.
I think you make such a good point on language, which is, it can, if you're using the wrong language, it can be extremely off-putting, can't it, to others that particularly aren't. They either don't understand. You see, you're effectively not communicating correctly,
or you're alienating almost,
or you're actively alienating. Yeah, so surely a big part of culture is addressing that language point. And actually, I'd never thought of it quite like that. It's a powerful point.
Yes, but it's quite hard for people that are almost IT people dyed through the wool,
yeah,
to embrace that and to find that empathy with the business. To say, how do you look at this? Yeah, because often I find myself saying, data products and APIs are fantastic. This is what you want. And they're looking at you again blankly.
Yeah.
And therefore, how do you also create the time to write and to tell that story? to your business partners. Yeah, and that's just very hard. Again, also because it's a little bit alien to how IT people have been trained and how we think. Yeah, we love fields. We love data dictionaries. Yeah, and that's in the business. It's the opposite. They don't care.
It's that adage, if you don't use the right language, you don't understand my problem. And it's that IT needs to learn to speak differently. So you were saying earlier, single view of the customer. That resonates far better than data product associated with the customer and things like this. It's the way you phrase and position what you're creating that's so important.
But the other thing, and I think I've stolen that from somewhere, browsing the web, my quest for purple people. So whether say the business is red and IT is blue, the quest for purple people, people that can do a bit of SQL, can self-serve, write their own reports using standard tools, understand the data, but therefore again, how do you create those purple people? Because again, many organizations struggle with, you got the IT department and you got the business department, and they communicate via email and Word documents. Yeah.
I mean, I think you'll see, I think there'll be a generational shift that helps solve that problem over time. I think when you look at, certainly, the younger end of the millennial generation, and then certainly into Gen Z and Alpha, where they're highly proficient from a tech perspective. They're just going to take that naturally, I think, into their...
Yeah, you already see that. So let me call it traditional IT versus digital IT. So when you walk on a digital floor, often you can't identify who's IT and who's business.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because digital by definition is technology, and whether you're business or IT, there's a deeper affinity, and therefore it's often easier to be purple. It's almost you are purple.
You're purple
at the start.
By definition.
Purple by definition.
Purple by definition.
And I do think that exactly as you just said, from the newer generations perspective, that's almost. Yeah, that the new generation is purple by definition.
Yeah, technology is part of their DNA. Yeah.
Yeah, comes with some downside as well. But I think this is not a social impact podcast. But
I think I was literally about to say, I think that's a subject for another podcast.
I've got three teenage kids. Oh my God.
No, we haven't got another 3 hours to unpack that, Wes. Well, look, on that note then, thank you so much for joining us today, spending some time with us and sharing your insights. It has been a fascinating look at a movement and a data transformation in action with, some very good driving points like the, changing customer expectations. So, Wes, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Now, we end every episode of this show by asking our guests what they're excited about doing next. And that could be, I'm going to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at the weekend, or it could be an exciting business opportunity that you've got coming up. So, Wes, what are you excited about doing next?
Well, I'm just going to stick to business and therefore work. I mean, it's almost like the new dawn. I can see also with the benefit of being 50 plus, the whole ERP evolution, and I loved and was part of ERP, that whole, I'm not going to call it a movement, but
the ERP wars. The ERP wars of the 90s and 90s.
And therefore, I mean, that was revolutionary in a way for many companies. And now almost decoupling. Yeah, the real thing I believed in was the integration of ERP, and I still do. But that mindset I retain. But therefore, the future and how I can help shape that and meet these challenges, and therefore be part of the continuous transformation, not a specific transformation of Burberry, but also the growth and the success of Burberry. Yeah, and Jeff, I've described sometimes my function as one step removed. Yeah, there's nothing I do that says, or my team does, that says, we sold that trench coat. Nothing. Yeah. That was the customer engaging on either a digital platform or a sales associate in store. However, making that process easier, quicker, and being part of that complete transformation of how the world works, but also how, therefore, companies like Burberry work, is just so exciting.
I couldn't agree more. We are absolutely at the beginning of a very significant change.
Yeah, what is the world going to be like in 10 years' time? I dread to think. I don't dread as in I can't understand it.
Yeah. The robots will have taken over, and and we won't be podcasting anymore because there'll be an artificial version of this.
Yes.
One.
We'll be avatars digitally generated. Running somewhere in a data center.
If we're lucky, Rob. Some of the things you've said on these past podcasts, I fear for you, mate, when the robots take over. That's all I'm saying.
I'm in trouble. Yeah.
No, but I'm just excited because I feel I'm part of something, even though I don't know what that is. Yeah, because I don't know what the future is.
Well, it's the exploration that's the joy, isn't it? It's the exploration that's the joy. So, Wes, thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.
So a huge thanks to our guest this week. Wes, thank you so much for being on the show. To our sound and editing wizard, Ben, and of course to all of our listeners. We're on LinkedIn and Twitter, Dave Chapman, Rob Kernahan and Sjoukje Rob. Feel free to follow or connect with us and let us know if you have any ideas for the show. And of course, if you haven't already done that, rate and subscribe to our podcast. See you in another reality next week.